Hey, everybody. Glad to have you back for the second edition of our Kids Win podcast. I'm here today with the lead cast right now of the musical Big Fish. So I've heard great things, guys. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to come see it because the weather had kind of caused us some issues. If you'll recall, we had to reschedule. So I have Connor with me, Luke, and Riley, and they played the leads in this play. So some of the things that I want to know, and I'll start with Luke. Luke, give me a little bit of the storyline behind the musical.
Okay, so Big Fish is about the life of Edward Bloom, which is who I played in the show, and he has his son Will, and Connor played the older version of that. And so when Will is younger, I tell him all these stories about my life, and he starts to believe that they're not true, and then I'm making them all up, and that causes some problems in their relationship when they're older. And so I think it's kind of just like you kind of just get talked through all the stories and you flip back and forth to like modern day and then going back in time and all of his stories come to life. And then at the end, Edward unfortunately dies and spoiler alert. And Will kind of realizes then that those stories were all like big life lessons and stuff like that.
Riley, what role did you play in the musical?
I played Sandra Bloom. I was the wife to Edward Bloom, and I really enjoyed doing that because I was able to form a lot of different relationships, like with Luke and with Connor as that sort of family dynamic.
So, Riley, did the character try to help navigate this trust issues and things that the two, the father and son had?
Yeah, it gets really complicated when, there's a parent and a child that have a difficult relationship, and then the other parent is kind of stuck in between that. So Sandra, is able to appreciate the magic in Edward's stories and how he wants to live larger than life, but she can also understand her son's concern with, wanting to live in reality. And sometimes Edward gets carried away to the point of Will's detriment. And that's a very complicated relationship, mother and son, but then also husband and wife battling with that kind of. But she was just, an emotional support for everyone. And it was obviously very hard for her as well as, Edward is his descent to his illness.
So and this leads me to a lot of things that theater does and our performing arts do. They're not just there for the performance. They have teaching moments. We're hearing folks here talking about dealing with emotions and dealing with trust issues and those things. So it's not just a performance. These are opportunities for you guys to learn and really see how some things are dealt with at the adult level too. Connor, give me a little background on your character.
Yeah, so Will is, like Luke said, Edward's son, and I basically very stubborn-esque, and, I grew up and met my wife Josephine in New York, and so we, in big city, went from small town to a big city, and so that transition really shifted Will's perspective of his imaginary father at times. And so Will got very frustrated at many moments in the show and around his life where he was like, Dad, stop making that up. Like, it's not true. And, obviously Edward kept going. But I think the beautiful part of Big Fish is seeing that relationship, I wouldn't say fully rekindled, but like nearly rekindled by the end of the show. It's really beautiful to see that transition of like pure frustration, anger towards each other to that, oh wow, like I finally understand him and like get him, but it was too late at that point. And so it's very touching to see that relationship so close to rekindle, but Will just didn't understand it soon enough to reap the benefits of a good father-son relationship.
Mm-hmm. So, Luke, as Edward, tell us one of the stories, one of the more far-fetched stories, so we can make a determination on our own as to whether or not Will should have been believing or not believing.
Okay, I guess I'll go with my favorite story. My favorite story is the story of the witch. So they're in the swamp when Edward's a teenager with two of the other guys from the town, and they run into this witch in the middle of the swamp who has like a crystal ball, and she shows Edward in the crystal ball how he dies and like the exact way it's gonna happen. And I think that's pretty far-fetched, but I really like it because it came with some good songs and stuff like that.
So did it come true at the end of the play? Is that the way?
It did. It comes
Really?
full circle, yeah. So, I mean, it's implied. It's not like a for sure thing, but yeah, he gets shown and then it happens, and he has a whole song about, like, I've seen this all before. So I'd say it came true.
Yeah. I know last year that Connor, for sure, I can recall, was in our musical last year, Mamma Mia. And I think everybody knows that famous soundtrack. Is there any music in Big Fish that we would have possibly recognized?
It's a pretty underground musical, unfortunately, because it's actually really, really good. If you listen to it, I know you'd find a song that you like.
Sure.
Yeah, I definitely think it has the potential to be a really well known, but it's just not.
Yeah. So, seniors, juniors, what do we have here?
We're seniors.
Yeah, Luke and I are both seniors.
Okay, so this is probably, and you're a junior, am I correct? This is probably then your last performance with us here at Woodford County High School. From
It
what I can
is.
gather, it was awesome. So I've got these three talented individuals here with me, and they seem to know talent. Do you think I could make it as a cast member on Big Fish? Possible?
I think it could happen.
I think I'd have to see you in the audition room first.
Here's some vocals.
Yeah.
Vocal
Okay.
sampling.
Well, I mean, I like Morgan Wallen. Does that help any? Am I a Morgan Wallen fan? Does that help me any?
I think there could be some influence.
I mean, as long as you have a love for some sort of music and the determination to learn and just be at whole with the music, then you're good to go. I mean, I can't dance to save my life, but here we are, second musical in a row at WCHS. So
Now, I do know a lot of just probably the whole script of The Waterboy. I mean, from Bobby Boucher's
Okay.
standpoint, I mean,
Yeah.
that could help, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
that means you're good at script memorizing. So that's, check,
It's step
check.
one.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or useless knowledge, one of the two.
Well, if we do Waterboy, you'll be perfect.
I would, yeah, I could fit in perfectly. I have an odd-shaped head like Adam Sandler and everything. I really do. So, guys, thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes.
And again, congratulations on a great performance.
Thank you.
I think
Awesome. Thank you.
It was very well received and spoke very highly of. So, congratulations on the great work.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
So we're back with another group of our students that were in our musical Big Fish, and with that being said, we talked to the leads, and they gave us the background on what was going on and a lot of the storyline. But now I want to start with Samantha here. Tell us a little bit about your character and the role it played in the musical.
I played the mayor, and it was a background character who gave the key to the city to the mayor and stopped mob violence. It wasn't a very big role, but it played a part in the story.
So you talk about mob violence. What had created the violence? Was there?
Okay, so Luke played the giant, and the people of the town didn't like the idea of the giant being there, so they started creating mobs and fighting against this giant.
So, Luke, this kind of reminds me of Shrek. If you'll
Yeah.
recall, I mean, Shrek had his own naysayers as well.
Yeah, it's similar to that, but it's more. Shrek is from the perspective of Shrek, and this is more if Shrek was told from one of the people of the town that didn't want to hurt Shrek, because
okay.
this is. It's actually kind of similar now that you're mentioning it, but instead of being from the perspective of Shrek, it's more from one of those townsfolks
That was supporting.
that was supporting
The giant.
Yeah.
So, again, we talked earlier too about learning things through these performances, and it's not just about going up and performing, but we're talking about support systems. And we all have them. We all have to have them, don't we? To be successful, we have to have support systems. I like to think that you have a good support system here at school, and you have a good support system at home as well. But support systems are very important. Isabella, tell us a little bit about your character.
My character was an Alabama lamb. She was more of a sorority friend of Sandra, which was the wife of Edward. And my role plays where it's a flashback to Edward's past as the circus, as kind of like a symbol. And that's where Edward and Sandra meet. And me and Sandra are auditioning to be in the Callaway Circus. And we basically perform this song for Callaway, which he doesn't end up liking it. But that's basically where Edward and Sandra meet for that first time. And it's kind of, a magical moment because it's that point in Edward's life that kind of changes.
Okay. So we know from our previous conversation that Edward likes to tell stories. Some may be far-fetched and some may be true. What would have been your favorite story? Who wants to tell us their favorite story shared by Edward in Big Fish?
Well, it's not really, it's sort of a story, but it's one of the stories that was, he never told. It's at the very end, because he liked to tell these stories, but there were parts of them that he wouldn't tell or because he was ashamed of them or whatever. And this story, he was ashamed of the end so much that he never told it, even though it was really the greatest thing he ever did. Was he came back after being a successful businessman. He came back to visit his hometown that was being flooded due to the construction of a dam. And the people of the town weren't leaving. They were trying to petition this dam building, but it didn't work. But the dam had already been built, and the water was rising, and the people were going to drown. So Edward went to the people he had met throughout his life, Amos Callaway, Carl the Giant, and got money and land to completely reconstruct this town somewhere else so that all of the people living in this town could go have their life. And it was something that he never told because he met one of his previous lovers in the town and almost left Sandra for that, but decided not to in the end. He was so ashamed of that moment of weakness that he never told that story to anyone. But Will learned of the story through that lover when his dad was dying, and came to realize that Edward wasn't as much of a complete fake person as he had imagined, and that there was really truth to the stories that he told.
So do you feel like that helped to nearly mend the relationship then between Will and Edward? Do you guys feel that possibly? I love the fact that you said it's probably the greatest thing he ever did. I mean, he affected a lot of lives doing that. So that is a really, really good thing. Okay, we talked a little bit about Shrek, and obviously you guys know a lot about talent here. I'm going to ask you, would I make a good Shrek?
I think you have the voice for it.
I think you could do it.
Yeah, definitely.
Maybe the ears too. Possibly the ears.
Can't see them right now, so.
Yeah. Definitely larger than a lot of people. That's one thing for sure. Just not green.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get green if I don't feel well. That happens. And I do know a lot of the lines from Shrek, so I could,
Yeah.
especially Donkey's lines. He's probably my favorite. Shrek's not really the best. What about, you remember Donkey's kids he had with the dragon? That they were little donkeys that breathed fire and flew around with wings? It's pretty cool stuff. Guys, I'm done being silly. Thank you all very much for coming and talking to me. And I heard nothing but great things about Big Fish and the talent that was involved with putting it on. So congratulations on a great performance. And thank you all very much. Very, very much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. That has wrapped up our second podcast, and we've had a chance to highlight our students, our always awesome performing students that performed in the musical Big Fish, and very well received in the community, and heard a lot of great things about it. So check back with us for our third podcast of Kids Win. We're excited. We're hoping to have some of our STLP work there, so be exciting to hear that too. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Kids Win podcast, provided by Woodford County Public Schools. Join us next time as we showcase the talents of our amazing students here in Woodford County Public Schools, where kids win.